but I think, raise your hands, how many people have a jig? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Great, great. And I've got 1, 2, because it's sort of as a backup. So why don't we do this? We'll start with somebody who can volunteer, and then we'll try to keep it to like 5 or 7 minutes. So a quick, couple minutes, what it is and what it does. Anybody has any questions, and then we'll move on to the next one. I don't want to rush anybody, but it'd be great to let everybody kind of show what they're doing and stuff. So does anyone want to go first? Awesome. I'm sorry, what was your name? June. If you want, we'll move it down here. I'll give you that. You can put that on if you want, and we'll put it down near the camera.
Okay.
All right. You're all set.
Thank you for letting me share this. I am always hesitant because I am not a woodworker. I'm not a furniture maker. I'm just a girl in a garage. But I needed to make something 2 years ago with crisscross lines, very much like Kumiko. And I found this thin rip jig online, and it is basically a strip that you run along the fence. I can't get that snapped. This piece goes along the fence, and then you know how wide that is. I marked it's 1.5 inches. And so it sits against the fence, and then I can set my distance to be how wide I want the strip to be. So I did that, and it worked beautifully. The things that made me look for a second model were that you're limited by the depth of this piece, so you'd always be changing it out or making multiple jigs, and you're kind of limited with the length, depending on what you do. But it works really well, and it did great for that project. So in the meantime, I was looking for another example, and I came across a gentleman on YouTube called Pawpaw's Workshop. I don't know if you've seen his stuff, but this one is far more flexible. There is a cleat or a tail that sits against the bottom of the saw, the table of the saw, and then you've got an adjustable piece here. Oh, these two pieces are clamped to the table saw fence, and then you've got this adjustable piece here, so you can slide it up and, you can slide it up and down to, I need a longer screw, to determine how far, well, I'll get a longer screw. But the farther you go toward the blade, and that's what this slot is, the blade, then it allows you to widen or decrease the width of the strip. And another thing that I did that's a little bit different from his, I wanted to keep the riving knife so I didn't have to keep taking it in and out, so I made my end piece much, much shorter. But when your board goes through and it's on the blade, then it hits this piece up here and it diverts it off to the side. And so the thing that I like about this one is I don't have to move my fence at all. This one stays in place. And because this is adjustable, I can go up to another width until I get wide enough that I would just rip them on the table saw without a jig. So this one has become my favorite thin rip jig.
Awesome. Questions? Yep. Pretty self-explanatory, but pretty nice.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody say yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trade you one little black thing for another little. There we go. Who wants to go next? Michael, you want to?
So I've made a number of boxes. Some of you have seen some that I brought in here. So this is a spline jig. And I did this for a project I did a while back and thought that was it, done. It was going to end up getting recycled into some other new project, but it turns out to have been very useful multiple times over for getting exactly what I wanted, which is you put the finished piece in here, you get the box, it's been glued up already, everything's in its final step, and what you want to do is add a little spline and to what would be a 45-degree joint that you've already got, so it's intended to be strengthening that joint. So you can adjust this from a fence perspective, left or right. In this case, I had a box that was about this wide or slightly wider, and I needed to make multiple grooves because it had spots that I wanted to put multiple splines on. So anyway, this has been very easy to make. As you can see, as long as you make the two pieces here at 45, then you've got a real nice holster for the corner of the box. Another one, which has a similar function, but not necessarily just limited to something like a spline. Infinity makes this one. It is versatile because all of the fence stops on here are adjustable up and down so you don't hit the blade. It's got the clamp, as you can see, built into the fence, so it'll hold your piece. You can also, if you're doing something like trying to make a tenon, you can slide this in, make it nice and snug so that you put one piece in, flip it around, do your cuts, take the next one, turn it over, and then it's very, very easy. The other is that because it's all adjustable, this is capable of taking something like I just did here. If you wanted to make something that wasn't dedicated to doing just splines, you could have done the same thing here. You put a square in, set it up, and you could do the same thing. You might have to keep moving this if you had multiple splines to put in place, but also if you had an angled piece, if you were making a tenon that maybe had an angle on it, then this is nice too. These can be turned around so that you got full board support also. This is not in the position where it would have full board support, but very handy. This is also very useful for pieces that you might not want to do something vertical on in the case of your router. So this is something that you could also do something that if you slid this along your fence, you might have to take the clamp off, but depending on how high your fence is, you could use this to slide it through your router, and you wouldn't want to do that with a small piece, especially something vertical, a little bit dangerous, right? So this would be useful for holding that in place. Anyway, I brought those two down. Thought the usefulness of this being store-bought from Infinity was a very good jig. It's come in very handy for me many, many times.
Cool, thank you. Questions? All right. Carl, I think you got your hand up next. Grab the mic up.
So I have two things. Neither of them are the cleverest things, but they're the things I use most in my shop. So first of all, who else hates these? They're horrible. Like the board comes up, you can't grip the side. So I decided a while ago to figure out a better one that wasn't one of those gripper things, because you're always worried about cutting into them. I wanted something I wasn't worried about cutting into. So I cut these on my CNC machine, and then I built them up. And you can cut right into it. And because they're just made of MDF, if you cut into it too much, you just throw it away. And it's great. I was doing the same thing as cutting strips. And how do you get, I didn't have the jigs. How do you get it like so you can go there and the blade, you just set it so it just cuts into the bottom of it. And so he asked, what would you do to improve it? The thing I did is I actually added a second guard here to keep your fingers away. So as you're going down your table saw, you're not tempted to have your fingers go close to the thing. And I also added a removable pin so you can hold the board in. I use these things all the time. This gives you down pressure, gives you in pressure, and I just cut a ton of these on my CNC machine. So if anybody wants, feel free to grab them, because I have a whole pile of them, because I don't really worry about cutting into them at all. So anyways, that was sort of the throwaway one. I do a lot of CNC work. And there's some pictures here of my machine. So I made a replica of my hold down table. The thing with CNC work is how do you keep the piece stationary without doing a whole lot of work. So this thing has T-tracks, has threaded inserts, and it also has 20 millimeter holes for things like the Festool clamp system. So here's some cam clamps that I made on my 3D printer. You've got the ones that the CNC machine comes with, different ones I've got from Rockler, et cetera. But the nice thing about this is that you can pretty much hold anything. I also printed off some stops, which I just drop in the holes. And so I have something to push up against, and my fixture is always in the same place. And these top spoil boards, because they're just screwed down, you can just replace them. You just cut new ones, and as you surface them, you get them closer and closer down. I recessed the T-tracks down in there so you can actually go quite a ways with resurfacing your spoil board before you need to replace these, but you don't have to replace any of your threaded inserts because they're in the bottom one, which never gets hit by, in theory, never gets hit by your bit. So that's it.
Very cool. Carl, did you want to show any pictures?
Oh, yeah, sure. Here's the pictures, actually. This is just a sample I made. So that's on my real CNC machine. See, it's been used. Flip to the next one, please. What is that? Oh, that's just, that's for, it's just a socket for, turning in and out the threaded insert screws. So there's one, there's my smaller CNC machine. And you see I've got some, I have some like side things already fixed in so I can press up against it. Next picture, please. There's my big CNC machine. This one actually didn't put any threaded inserts in. This is a 6x12 CNC machine. And I don't really use the threaded inserts that much. And this one has the vacuum table, but I actually don't like the vacuum table. And so I don't use the vacuum table. So I just built the top on, the top on it. So it has the T-tracks and has all the 20 millimeter holes, but it doesn't actually have any of the threaded inserts on it. I think that's it. So.
Why don't you like use it?
It doesn't hold stuff that well, and it's not good for small stuff. I'm often not just doing sheets, I'm doing like pieces. And if you have the vacuum table on it, you can't hold anything small. And if you have the vacuum table, you can't have any other fixtures like T-slots or anything in the vacuum table because it ruins the vacuum. And so the vacuum table is really if you're only dedicated doing like sheet goods. And I don't really do much sheet goods. And on the big machine, it's actually more convenient. Like I actually kind of like it better because I got the stops in there, I put the plywood up against it, put the side clamps on it, and I'm done, and nothing moves. The only advantage of the vacuum table is that you don't have to use tabs, but I would say 20% of the time things shift. So, I'm not a huge fan of the vacuum table, but I do have one. So.
Have you ever hit one of your clamps that wasn't just made out of plastic or wood, or?
Actually, not that often. I wrote my own software, and you actually can position all your clamps on it, and it tells you if you're about to hit them. It actually analyzes the program, to do that. And most of the time, I'm just clamping the sides. I'm not really having anything sticking up. And I try to use things that are like wood or 3D printed right next to it. So if I hit them, I just throw them away and get another piece in place. So even if I've got like a cam clamp or something, I'll put a piece of wood between it. So if I get so close to the edge, like it's not even cutting into this because this takes 2 hours to print or whatever. So.
All right. Yeah, so.
You can probably just set it on the.
So, like, is there anything?
Yep.
I can talk loud enough too. So anybody that came to the shop, I make, my wife presses flowers and she makes little art pieces with them. So I make a lot of frames. So this is a miter jig, I guess this, or a picture frame jig. I've made a smaller one before, and then I made this one. I would like to make one that's a little bit nicer that has some stops, but I really use this on the table saw. So it has hardwood just for the slots, and then used a piece here that I tried to ensure was as close to 90 as possible. But what the cool thing is, it doesn't really matter if it's perfectly aligned this way, because no matter what the cuts are, they're gonna always line up when you put it together. But lately I've shifted to a shooting board, so I do the cuts on here, and then I move them to a shooting board to do it more precise, and it gets a very clean miter. So nothing very complicated, but if you guys have any questions.
So for that one, you would need, if you're just using this jig and that's a shooting board, you need to cut one angle on one side and one on the other.
Yes.
To get that match, because they're not gonna be, because that's my question was, how did you dial it in to get it as?
So I try to get it as close to that sitting 90 and to the blade, but if it's off by say 49 on one side and 51 on the other, then it doesn't matter in theory because they're gonna match up. As long as you keep them together, like this is a corner and I did left and right cuts, so.
I use the same thing on a miter saw.
Mhm.
Works great.
Yeah, I've seen them where they have a stop, so then you can make the frames where you actually control the length as well, because that's the two things you need, is the 90-degree, and then the sides have to be the same length. So the miters.
You can use whatever length you want.
Yeah.
5 feet long, doesn't matter.
Yep. So, yeah. Any questions? No?
Something I make for my craft shows when I go out is a ring holder. It looks like a candlestick holder. And putting the ring on the outside edge was a little difficult because I've had a couple of them where I would put this on the drill press and I was trying to hold it by hand and bring the forstner bit down just to cut a little groove and a flat spot where I could put the ring into it. But if you can see with this one slipped on me. And then I was like, I've got to come up with something. So I decided to come up with a clamp system where I can put the piece into it. And it's just a simple toggle clamp to come over and hold it in place. And it's just a simple homemade toggle clamp. I got the plans for, I think off of Pinterest, I think it was. And just took all the dimensions and started making it. And it actually works better than I thought it did. And all it is there is a simple T-nut inside. And that's basically just from electrical spools. Where I used to work, they used to use wire constantly, and they were always throwing them away. So I would pop the T-nuts out and took them home. I got a drawer full of them at home still. And when I make these, they don't always end up the same thickness. So with this is completely adjustable to where I can make it to where I can catch each one and it locks it in place. It holds really good. I did about a dozen of these the other day. And it's just a matter of, with this one, I've got what it is, these are leftover pieces from other projects I do. A lot of times if I'm making something and I want the round piece in the middle, I'll take the 4 corner pieces and save them and I reverse them. That's what these are, and put them together. And then I just add a little veneer or some other woods to it to give a little extra color. And I use that to line it up with, bring it in and clamp it, and then just come down, spot face it, and then come back later and I'll drill a hole into it. And then the ring I put on this side, I've got the little clamp on the end. I put the ring into it and just spot it because I'll take a small piece of bamboo. I actually use bamboo skews as a dowel rod. And it's just, basically, it's just enough to hold it together to get the piece together to hold it, to make the ring holder for it, so.
Turn around.
What's that?
Turn around.
Just a V-block, just to steady it to hold it. 'Cause that, I haven't had any trouble with that yet, so. But I have had trouble, like I said, I had trouble with this when I wanted to clamp it, but I just want something to hold it.
Are those things turned? Like, did you turn the base piece? How do you make the piece that you were?
These? Yeah, I turn them. Yeah. Like I said, almost every one of these are leftover pieces from larger projects. If I make well, basically, it's called a button box, and it's just if I take a square piece, when I piece the pieces together, and I'll sand it flat, glue a disc to it, and go to my bandsaw, and I'll cut it in a circle. And I'll save the corner pieces, but like I said, I'll reverse the pieces, clean up the corners, and just glue them back together, where they're like this. Where you can see it's just 4 pieces. I just hate throwing wood away if I can still use it for something else. So.
Pretty good.
But that's it.
So I'll pass these around here, but what I wanted to explain is what we're looking at. So this is the fore end of a gun stock. It's for a 2-piece gun stock. It's for a lever action. It's called a Savage 99. Older gun they don't make anymore. And this is the original one. It's from the economy model. It's just birch. And I wanted to put something a little bit more fancy on there, so I made one out of walnut. And so I'll pass these around for you. The right tools for this job are a lot more expensive than I wanted to put in. So I made something. And I also don't have a router table, but I have a router. So what I did was I built this big table. The problem with trying to use a router freehand, I'm sure you can imagine there are multiple problems. This is the piece I'm working with right now. This is ash. And for gun stocks, they don't all come in the same shape or size. They also come in different widths. So when those make their way around to you, then you'll see the original one is a little bit thinner than the walnut one. The walnut, I wanted a little bit more something to hold on to instead of just having kind of a long, slender thing that I don't really know where to grab. So that's where this comes in. This is just Home Depot white pine, and it's just screwed together. It's a mess, but it works. What we've got are, we've got kind of a center work area here where your piece goes in. And depending on the width that you're working with, you can adjust this piece in and out. You just unscrew it and screw it into your new thing. The thing with making at least in my experience, with making a gun stock is you're not gonna be doing a high item count. You're just working with one piece at a time. And since it's white pine, I'm not worried about messing up screw holes or putting the wrong thing in there. So I wanted to make sure it was secured to my workbench, so I just added a couple of just cut pieces here that I put C-clamps onto. And it doesn't need to be secured like for a tornado to not take it off the ground. I'm just moving a router across it. So there's kind of 3 quick steps for doing a forend of a gun stock like this. And this is the first step, is just making a center line with your router. With that, really helps if you have the thank you, yeah. And one of these guys with adjustable height settings on it. So you always make multiple passes with the router, right? You never go straight in. So you get your piece in here. And I usually shim it up so that it's up at the top, and then I actually screw it into the side. And shaping the outer edge where you'd actually hold is actually the last thing you would do. You actually want to retain a lot of stock that you can hold on to when you're doing the most important step, which is called inletting. So once you get your stock in place, then you just screw it in and make sure it's not going to move. And you screw it low. So there's a couple of screw holes here and here, which is below the line that I'm going to be working with. And I'm sorry, it's a really thin line, which you probably can't see, but just make sure your screw holes aren't going to go into your final piece, right? So you just make your passes, and then adjust your height down, little bit by little bit. And ultimately, what you would have at the end is a stepped center line here. The stepping is important, at least for my rifle, because not all rifle barrels have a straight, like a perfectly straight barrel that's the same diameter at the muzzle as it is at the breech. Mine is tapered, and it's not a straight, consistent taper. It's stepped into different, barrel shapes. So that's kind of where the depth adjustments go into using your router. So that's kind of the main step for the step 1. Step 2, I don't have a jig for because you just use I just used a Dremel. You draw some lines, make sure that you're not gonna cut too much material away, and that's kind of the most of the bulk removal. It's important to do the router bit first so that you actually have a consistent center line. The third step is where this comes in. So this is not a marching band baton. This is actually a very crude recreation of the rifle barrel itself that I made using a homemade lathe. And lathe is extremely loose turns. But it's close enough. This is actually slightly smaller than the diameter because I wanted it to be a snug fit so that I can kind of finish the final thing with scrapers and finer sandpaper. But this is 40 grit sandpaper, and it's not perfectly wrapped on there. This is the only piece like this that I had, so I didn't have the opportunity to make a test piece first. So I'll pass this around. But that's kind of the third step is once you get to an almost completed phase, then what I did was I took my my sandpaper barrel recreation and you just ram it through there a bunch. And it just takes time. And what that'll give you is like a 90, probably 98% accurate inletting to what your actual barrel should look like. That's the most important stuff, is just getting the inner diameter and all the inner bits to connect correctly. Everything outside of the inletting is just for fun. You could throw this once it was properly inletted. You could just throw this or a straight 2x4 under the front of the gun and it'd be just fine. So there we go.
So you're not using a cove bit, you're just using a straight bit and making like a stepped trench.
I was using one that's round, like
Okay,
a
so it is like
half
rounded.
inch.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm using one that is slightly smaller than the smallest diameter of the barrel, which would be at the muzzle. The muzzle is slightly over half inch, so I'm using a half inch bit.
Because that's what's got, you don't get that many like micro adjustments for bit size, so I was just curious.
Yeah, great question.
A half inch works most of the time or whatever, or I think you said they're different.
Yeah.
Carving with the Dremel?
No, great question. The carving is all done by hand with a cheap set of gouges from Harbor Freight. I think it was $11 for a set of 5, and I didn't know if I wanted to get into carving or if I would like it, so I said start small.
Good.
Yeah.
So the pitting on that one, would that be like a punch or something? You're just like hammering in all the way around until it looks like that?
Great question. So the what I've got there is English ivy carved with the gouges, and then there's these little dots behind that, and that's what you call stippling. And I just took a Dremel bit, like a cone-shaped stone one, and just laid on the couch watching something on TV, and with a hammer, tink, 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 one at a time. You can actually tell that I got impatient closer to the end of the breech because the holes are deeper and wider. I was trying to see, like, can I get this done faster instead of the smaller, tighter ones? Yeah, patience is a virtue.
Did everybody see?
There you go. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Any questions? Yeah, questions?
I got three jigs over there. 2 of them I use here at the store, teaching classes. This one here, this is what we sell out here for tapering. What a piece of crap. I mean, it's small. It's very short, and the table legs, I teach the fundamentals class here, and our table legs are about 30 inches long. So I've got brand new students that have never used a table saw before, trying to use this, hold this in a table leg and walk up to the saw and push it across. My heart, everybody knows I've already been in the hospital with a heart problem. So I think that's where it stems from. But so I got online, I said, this isn't gonna work. So to make it much safer, I saw 3 different plans on YouTube and different things. I kind of said, I like this, and I like this. So I kind of merged them, came up with this here. Just 2 pieces of scrap plywood, cut some slots in them, and then put some toilet bowl bolts in there and some knobs, and I can move this around and get whatever taper I want. And if I've got a piece of wood that's very odd shaped, I can clamp it on here, and I've got a straight edge that I can straighten one edge out, because that's real important on a table saw. So this thing has come in real handy for 20 years. I've been teaching this class here at Woodcraft, so this has worked out really well. And I haven't had to use this. So the 5-cut method is you build the jig and you kind of temporarily get your back fence, because that's what really matters, is getting it square. And you do a test cut. You take a decent sized piece of wood and you're going to cut a strip, then you're going to turn it, cut a strip, and hopefully it's going to be square. But you go all the way around, and your 5th cut, you're going to cut that same first strip again, but you cut it narrower, and then you measure the 2 ends, and that gives you what you're off. And then there's a formula on which way to adjust the fence depending on how it is. And you can use a feeler gauge and stuff. But when I did it the first time when I was out 2000s, I said, okay, where's the glue? So I just, right, yeah, so that worked out really well. My last little jig here, give me that board there too. My daughter kids.
So my daughter, last year we built a table together, and came out really nice. Now she wants to build another table, but she wants a demi-lune style table, which is just half of an oval. I was like, okay. So I got online, and I've seen people use that string method, put 2 nails to a string, and I've done that, and it never works out. And I said, okay, there's gotta be a better way. So I saw another thing, and this guy works out really well, because I can do this, and I can hold this. These 2 pins, this pin to this pencil is the length for the oval, and then the other pin is my width, okay? So I just kind of set this down here, and let me get, there you go. And then I can just come around, and it comes all the way back around. Oop, comes off over here. And right back in there if this doesn't move around. So it gives me a nice good oval, and hers will only be half of it, because she just wants half of the table. She's got a small area for this thing to go into. So then I said, okay, well, what's gonna help me get it? So I made one for the router also. The router, I used this is 1/8 inch slots, and I just took an 1/8 inch dowel and poked some holes for length and stuff, and then put a spot for the pencil. The other one's got 3/4 inch dowels, and the router will sit on here, and it'll just go around and trim up everything once I get it rough cut. So that worked out pretty well. She thought Dad was pretty cool.
Brett, can you say what the measurements are again? I just got your 2, like your width and your.
So
what?
my length is gonna be from the center of this slot to the end here. That's half the length.
Okay.
So, and then the other one is the same thing, but it's for the width of so it's half the width of the table.
Okay.
So you can drill more holes and just figure out from your pencil.
Right.
And that's it. So it worked out. And it was a lot easier than that dang thread.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Because it stretches, and you never get it comes close, but I wasn't happy with close.
Well, and the string wasn't gonna turn into a router jig either.
Right. So I just made out of 3/4 1/2 inch ply, and just did 3/4 inch grooves and some 3/4 inch to give me that, and then a platform for the router to sit on, and just a 1/4 inch roundover, not even round, a 1/4 inch straight bit, to just, after you cut it out with ply, or cut it out with a jigsaw or whatever, bandsaw, just to clean up the edges. So it works out really well. And it, yes.
Yeah, you gotta watch where the
So-
nails
Watch
are.
where the pins are.
Yeah, see the pins?
Yeah.
So this pin is just gonna stay right here in this groove. This pin's gonna move in this groove.
Okay.
So as I go, it just comes around. I'm coming real close there. And then see how it comes back? And I'll double stick tape this down. But then this comes around this way. And it comes right back to the same spot. Yeah, both pins are moving.
It's like a smoke grenade.
Yeah.
It's like a smoke grenade.
There's some guys out there smoking some good stuff. I'm telling you.
There's a toy called smoke grinder.
Yeah, I've seen that, right? It goes
They
back
have
and
T-slot,
forth.
and you crank it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's good stuff. I know I actually have, if you do a lot of stuff with rough lumber, having something like this where you can cut one end off it is like amazing. Who do we got left? I know there's a couple more people. Oh, you got one, Chris? Sure.
I used it for surfacing a piece of wood because I didn't have my CNC up yet. So all I did was have a wide workbench, and I secured the piece of wood down to the bench itself. I just ran the guess I did a bigger one, but, and just ran it across, flattening out. The good thing about this is it's very flexible. You can make it any height you want. Right, so whatever width of your piece of wood.
So you do it.
I did two of them. I did two of them with this one. Then I went out and bought a CNC. So, but I mean, I like the design a lot because it's very flexible. You can, like I use this to move this, and then, but you can bolt these or clamp these down and then move the wood through it. So either way, it's flexible enough. It's just MDF with plywood. It's really easy. Probably could have made it all out of MDF, so it's probably flatter. But I didn't really have any problems with flatness with any of the plywood either. So that's it.
I know we're gonna make you last. I've got, mine's not 100% homemade, but I just realized, I haven't used this for a couple of years, and I realized when I dug it out that I bought it in 1996. And I'm proud of the fact that I still have the directions from 1996. That's from Michigan to California to Texas to Maine to Virginia, so held on to those babies. So when I was a young whippersnapper woodworker, I wanted a dovetail machine or a maker, and like that Porter Cable one that somebody took over there, that Omni Jig in 1996, that was all the bomb, but it was also like $500 or something or whatever. So Keller, and you can still buy this today. I think Woodhaven is an online company that sells it. So they called this their Journeyman dovetail system. So basically for like $100, I got this phenolic plate and 2 bits. And I actually still have the original bits, and they actually still cut, which is also amazing. But you can still buy new bits. So this is the simplest form or version of like a through dovetail. And I love this. Over the years, I've made tons and tons and tons of boxes. I made these 2-foot by 2-foot bookcases that I would drag around with me to wherever I was moving. And it's just the simplest thing. So you just bolt this to the piece of wood. And as you can see, you've got 2 separate settings. So this one has the, however you want to call it, pins or whatnot. And it just cuts that, no problem. And then you have a straight shank that goes on here and kind of cuts out the open space. And it literally just does, you know, those 2 rolls. This is one of my old bookcases. But what's great about it is all you're really worried about is setting the depth, which is pretty easy to do. And then all you're really worried about is aligning. You saw these lines on this. I've never changed this block, so this block's pretty old. But you can see all you're doing is just kind of lining it up and getting in line. Once you've got it in line, it's going to go, and they're always going to go together. They're always going to work. Let's see if I can if I brought the right one. But you know, I don't know, years and years and years later, I never even glued any of the bookcases and stuff I made or whatever. So it's not flexible in the sense that you're not going to get all sorts of different dovetails out of it. It certainly looks a little machine-y, but I just wanted to make these things to make boxes and use them and do stuff and things like that. I also found out years ago, if you weren't making something this tall, one day I realized I could just flip this over and set it on the router table and run it through the router table if you had a short box or whatever. So you basically just, you know, 2 clamps, clamp this on there. So you need to, well, let's do this. So, you know, you clamp it in a bench. I had an old workmate, so this was perfect for a workmate. You stick this in the workmate, stick this up box side, line it up, and then you're good to go. So it was just, it's been a great jig. I've loved it over the years. I don't do as much with it anymore, but it's a really simple workhorse. You can still buy it. They still make this. They make a couple others. In fact, I think the reason I bought this the year it came out because their other one was 2 pieces of metal, which cost like $200 or something back then, and this was the cheap, the on the cheap kind of thing. So it's been a lot of stuff since then, but it's just been a great jig for me over the years. So that's that.
And could you tell us the name again?
It's called the Keller, Keller. But if you go to woodhaven.com, I think that's the company that still sells it. But yeah, and they do different versions and stuff. But this is just the nice.
Lee Jig's got very similar to that thing, same thing you saw out there.
Oh, where it's just like a stock thing.
You just mount it to a
Yep.
piece of wood like you've got it, yeah?
Yeah. I think this was probably like one of the first ones because I remember when this was popular mid '90s, like anchor jig was really huge, and then the old Porter cable ones were really huge because you could move around you could move. And then everybody probably people. I think that blue one over there, that's the half blind dovetail jig. That old setup. I've made some drawers with that, unfortunately, but yeah, cool. Questions? All right. You're up, Chief.
All right, so what I have here in my right hand, you can probably hear me without that anyway, is a Fox style side bending jig. And this is the one jig. This is the one jig that I really don't want to be without in my shop. Before this, I would have to hand bend every piece of side, every lining, every binding, 6 bends for every guitar. And it would take about 45 minutes per piece. It's ridiculous. This I can bend, this is for ukulele. I can bend the ukulele side in less than 5 minutes. So I can do 6 bends in a day, have everything done for it. So it's a huge, huge, huge time saver. This is a Fox style bending machine. It's designed by a luthier named Charles Fox. And when luthiers build tools for luthiers, they're usually pretty good. So this is really simple. So, simple plywood construction. All I need is 2 parallel sides. And I made a call in here, and I put a couple pieces of aluminum rod in there just so that it slides up and down in the same spot every single time. So, this is designed right now for a baritone ukulele. I have another one that's smaller for a tenor ukulele, and they both have dados cut out, so it drops right in, fits over there, and it doesn't move. So I use this one jig for 2 different sizes. If I wanted to make a soprano or a concert, I could do the same thing. Just a smaller jig here. When I do the side bending, I use a piece of aluminum foil. I have my side dimensions to what I need. Spritz it with water really lightly. Stick it between 2 pieces of spring steel with a silicone heating mat. Slide it in and turn it on. At about 250 degrees, I start doing this. Actually, I do it with my fingers. It's that much resistance the entire way. And I get it down almost to where it needs to be, about there. And then I just have these simple little calls. One goes on here and here. And it's hot enough now, there's steam coming out. I'll just take this spring and I'll just work this way, just like this with my hand. I'm pushing down this way, and about this quickly, and this side is bent, and it's done. The other one goes on here. For my guitars, it depends. If I'm doing a really tight curve, I'll go down to about 65 thousandths, usually about 85 thousandths. So it also depends on the type of wood. If I'm using a highly figured wood, I try to go thinner, but I've cracked them before. It's nothing like getting right out here and you hear $300 out the drain. But yeah, it depends. If I'm doing rosewood or koa or something like that, you don't even need moisture. You can just bend them. There's enough oil in them. Coca-Cola is the same way. The top part, same way. I do this one at a last because it's been under heat for a bit longer, and done. Before I even put these on, I turn the silicone heating mat off. It's already up to 300 degrees by that time. I just let it cool, and that's all there is to it. Some woods tend to spring back like mahogany, so I will, a couple hours later, I'll turn it back on, let it warm up again, loosen up the lignin in the wood, and then I'll turn it off and let it cool again. But, so I use a piece of spring steel, very thin, and then I have aluminum foil with the wood inside it, and it's just completely closed up. I just mist it with water, very, very lightly, just a couple squirts. Before I wrap it, so the aluminum, it's inside the aluminum foil, it's sealed, there's just a little bit of water inside there.
There's no glue yet.
No, this is just the side. So then there's another piece of, well, actually a silicone mat, which has wires through it, which is what caught my shop on fire. That goes on next, another piece of spring steel. So,
It's on the outside.
yes. So the steel just reinforces the outside of it, prevent from splitting.
Steel, aluminum foil, wood, aluminum foil, steel.
So on the ukuleles, it's the steel, then the aluminum foil with the wood in it, heating mat, and another piece of spring steel on top. For the guitars, I have spring steel above and below the heating mat, just because it's a bigger, more expensive piece of wood. So, but yeah, it goes very quickly. I take this down my fingers, it's done, and that's all there is to it. And then as soon as it comes out of here, I have something like this for all my different sizes. And I brought this one. This is for a dreadnought guitar because my baritone ukulele has a piece in it. This you can see, it's okay. So when it comes out of this, I put it in here. And this is just a call to, I never remember which way I need to tighten or loosen it. Okay, that's just a call to keep it in position. So when I had this before, I had a hinge on one side and I had a big toggle clamp on the other side. And when I've got the sides in here and they're cut, I need to glue a head block and tail block on there, but that toggle was in the way. So I decided to make my own hinge and build it into the thing like that. So it makes it a lot easier. It's out of the way. And I put my center line off the hinge. So one center line's here, one center line's over here. So I don't have that in the way at all. So it makes it very easy to work with. When I radius the sides, I keep it in here. There's a big sanding disc for the radius. It's called driving the bus. Do it from right here. When I put the linings in, it's still in here, still clamped in until the actual back goes on. Everything is done inside here. It doesn't come out of here until it's ready for that. And then right up here, if I'm doing a cutaway, I have a block which will go, there we go, right in here for a cutaway. So cutaway is just if you, those guitar players that like to use every single fret and get all the way down here and do this stuff, that's what this is for. So, and if you'll also notice there's a little notch right here. So when this piece of wood comes up here and it's bent, it goes up and fits into that notch so it doesn't flap around or anything like that. So this is the body form, and I have one for every style instrument that I make.
You have a cutaway for the first jig?
I don't yet, because the ukuleles are so small. I mean, if somebody wanted to cut away, I don't know why, because you can reach it anyway. The fretboard only goes that far under the body, but they do make them that way. I've never had somebody that wanted to.
But you use that same jig for the guitar, right? The same.
Well, so I have one of these that's big,
For a guitar.
really, really big. Yes.
But that one has a cutaway.
Yeah. So the other one I have for the guitar, that's a good question. Instead of one big block like this, there's 3 different pieces that drop in. Once that spring steel's over, it doesn't matter if there's a space between those pieces. I can take those pieces out, put it in different size. And there's actually a ram which will fit onto here with another arm like this, which screws in here, which does the cutaway. So when I had my shop fire, I had one of these set up, and you can see it's got a piece on the back. So I would usually do it like this, hanging off the bench, so the sides can hang down. So I bent the side, unplugged it, and was still in my shop for another hour or so. Left for the day, super happy. Went and got donuts the next morning, was all ready for everyone to show up. I was in a good mood, love donuts. Opened the door, got hit with smoke and heat. So what happened was, there was a short in the silicone mat. It was quite old. There might have been some wires sticking out. And it caught this piece of wood, it just smoldered. My shop's pretty tight. It didn't actually have flames until I opened the door that next morning. So this entire piece of wood, this size, and completely just smoldered through all night. This thing disappeared. This thing disappeared. It burnt through this part, fell on the floor, burnt through the floor, burnt through the joist, and was almost to the outside wall. So if we did not have that shop tour that morning, I wouldn't have gone out there for another hour, and the shop would have been gone. As soon as it hit the outside air from that outside wall, the shop would have gone up in seconds. So I was lucky in that aspect. But I had to make 2 more of these. The big one I bought, which was about $2,000. So
So So you leave the heating on for a long time?
No, I plug it in. As soon as everything's in here, the sandwich is sticking out like this. I turn it on, and it actually starts to sag usually a little bit by itself. As soon as it reaches the temperature, I unplug it and start bending it.
Why was it on overnight?
Oh no, it stays in here to cool. But there was something that had sparked and ignited this wood underneath that. I didn't see it, so it was just smoldering while I was still in the shop. And then yeah, it just slowly disintegrated. It was just a solid block of MDF this size that was gone. The only thing left was actually this screw. This is the one that was in the one that burned up. So now I am a little anal about going in on the shop, I get halfway to the house, I go back in, I check again, I come back out. So yeah, I check everything, but that's all there is to it. It's very simple.
How long does
So-
it cool?
What's that?
How long does it cool?
It cools pretty quickly. It gets up to about 300 degrees. 20 minutes later, I can put my hand on it. I let it cool, usually overnight. Like I said, sometimes I'll plug it back in, bring it up to temperature again, and just let it relax against some woods. But they go pretty quickly. All my sides, except for the ukuleles, all my guitars, I laminate the sides together. So there'll be another bend of a rosewood or mahogany, about 25 thousandths, and I'll laminate to the inside with epoxy and a vacuum press. So they're very, very strong then. But without these two things here, nothing's happening. Everything is done this.
So how many different body forms do you have?
I have 2 for ukulele and 2 for guitar. I have a baritone ukulele, which is this one, a little bit larger size. And any guitar players? The baritone, if you can play guitar, you can play baritone ukulele because it's the same strings, just get rid of the 2 bass ones. So the tenor ukulele is a little different. Any Cowboys fans? Okay. In order to remember the strings, gay Cowboys eat ass, GCEA. So,
The call on the threaded rod, is that only for like this exact profile?
no, so it's a good, really good question. It's actually a little thin, just comes down to a point right here. It fits both of them. When I first did the first one, I made it fit this exactly right. I'm like, why? Once that's down in the middle, that wood's gonna bend over the form. So it's, you can see, I can see a little bit of gap here and here. It just touches the wood at the very center point. And I bring it almost all the way down, bend the sides, and then snug it the last little bit, just to snug it up a little bit, and it's done. Super easy. Literally 5 minutes, and the sides are done. When I bend the, used to be curved linings, I use linings that are solid in here, or the bindings. I put 4 or 5 pieces in all together, bend them all at the same time, instead of one at a time. So it's a huge time saver. I can do, like I said, all 6 bends in one day, versus if I sat down and just bent everything for the guitar, it would take 2 full days easily. Just and cussing and good stuff bends and breaks really easily. So that's a whole other class.
So how long before you have a vault to put these things in when they're hot?
Oh, and that? No, they stay here. I've got 3 benches, so it just stays on the bench till it's cool. As soon as it comes out, it goes in here, and then I bend the next one. So it's quick.
And then at the end of the day, you unplug it?
I unplug it before I even bend it.
Okay.
The big one I have, it's like 200, 275, 300. It's fast. It is really, really fast. And you'll see steam coming out right away, and the sides will just start, coming down a little bit, and they bend fast.
What is the silicone mat originally for? Is it specifically for?
It's specifically for that. It's this, so the one I have for ukulele is just a little bit longer than this. It's this wide, and it's designed for that. And the larger one is for guitars. It's about 6 inches wide. So my bigger one is wider here, and it does it very, very quickly. And they even make smaller ones which you can use to put on guitar parts to heat up, to remove parts, to heat up the glue and soften from the heat. So, but yeah, that's it. That's
So the new one, you bought one to replace the one that burned. Why didn't you build another one?
I spent about a month and a half building the first one because it was the first one I ever built. I didn't want to build it again, and I was hating myself for what happened. And the next day I saw that it was $500 off online, so I'm like, I'm buying it. Screw it. So and my wife's like, you seem to be in a lot better mood today. After spending an entire day in the shop cleaning stuff with industrial strength white vinegar, I literally took everything apart. All my benches were open. Now everything's got doors and drawers. The one set of benches I saved, I took them apart. I had to paint underneath, inside, paint the floor, had to paint inside the cabinets, everything. So, and then I think I told a company I was trying to figure out what color, because my floor was white and I primed it and it showed everything. So I went to Home Depot right before one of these meetings, trying to figure out what color paint I could use that wouldn't show sawdust. And Behr makes a color paint called Fresh Sawdust. So it worked out perfectly. It's fantastic. I love it. My shop is dirty as shit and you can't tell. So I mean, it was good. So yeah, the new one that I've got has a big metal stand and it's open in, so you can slide the thing in from the side and take it out, which is really nice. It's got a thermocouple. It's got a control up here that you can set the temperature for. It's really cool. And Charles Fox got with Stumac, which is a Luthor supplier, and they designed it and built it. So
it's got a heating element built into it then?
well, it's still a mat.
Right, but it's plugged into the.
Yes, it plugs into itself and to the wall, and I make sure both plugs are out and hanging off the bench when I'm done. So the only thing is it's big, and you know, maybe like September I can do one on building a guitar if you want. I could even bring it in and bend aside. It'll take 5 minutes.
That'd be cool.
So
That'd be cool.
it'd be really easy to do. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, like I said, it's super fast and it's very easy to do.
When are you gonna do that so we can have a fire extinguisher?
So I do have a fire extinguisher in my shop now. I did not have one then. So when I went in that morning, great mood, coffee's ready. I got 2.5 dozen donuts. I was so happy. And the flame came up and the smoke was hitting me, and what was going on? So I was able to reach in and flip the switch on for the ceiling fan, which made the fire go up a little higher. So I got in there and I knew I had a water bottle. So I got this water bottle. I'm standing over this fire. So I ran out, got the garden hose, and stood at the doorway and just started hosing it down. And I think by the time you showed up, it was still like 130 degrees in there. So I tried to. I didn't have any numbers to call anybody. I'm like, we need to cancel this stuff. It's 9 o'clock or something. So I'm like, well, lessons learned. So, but everything that I was working on, I didn't trust that the glue wouldn't hold up for the heat. I didn't know how hot it got. Everything got thrown out. All my woods got thrown out and everything. So I started all over, made all new jigs and everything. So it took about 3 months. The actual damage for the building was about $200 for a couple of joists and some flooring, but the rest of it was. The smoke damage was crazy.
So you probably paid more for the paint.
Oh, yeah. And even with scrubbing everything, you know when you hit a piece of steel that looks nice and shiny and you put white vinegar on it, it's not nice and shiny anymore. It rusts immediately. So I had a pile of nuts and bolts and screws and parts. I was just sitting there for days just cleaning stuff. All my jet tools, they're not the color that they came. The color doesn't change. It's still like smoked. I had to do 2 coats of primer on the ceiling for smoke, 2 coats of paint. It still bled through. And I finally got an ozone generator for $50, killed the smell just like that. So, but you know, now I've got new workbenches. I've added 20 more doors and 25 more drawer fronts that I didn't have before, and you know, I'm poorer but smarter for it. So.
Looking forward to the next tour.
So basically, there's no laminating until you're in the later stages.
Yeah, so the ukuleles I don't laminate at all.
You just steam bend it.
Yep.
And it takes a shape.
Yep.
And you said you put a piece of wood inside of it later on.
Yeah, for the guitars I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ukuleles, you don't do it at all?
No, it's so thin, there's not much pressure on that. These are a bigger surface and wider. People tend to drop guitars and they split along here, which is with the grain. So a lot of the classical makers will put a little piece of wood this way to try to limit that when they do. I say when, not if, when they do crack. But now all the higher end guitar builders are laminating, and we do it with vacuum press and epoxy in between. It makes them very, very strong. The sides of the guitar should be like a drum. They shouldn't move at all. They should be as strong as you can make them. We want to keep them light. The back moves, the top moves a lot, but the sides need to be rigid.
So you use an epoxy resin?
Yep, makes a 2-part epoxy.
Okay.
And I do it in a vacuum
Like you do
bag.
with the boats?
Yeah.
So, okay.
So the sides are very strong, and some builders do 3 layers. The inner layers are about 20 thousandths. They're very, very thin. So
basically your veneers, a little bit of moisture and heat.
Yeah.
Does everything you need to do.
the inner veneers, I don't use any moisture at all. I just bend them. They're so thin. I could probably do it without even bending them because they're 20 thousandths. The outer laminate is the exact same size as if I wasn't using inner layers at all. I don't kick that down and that still stays the same. So if that's 80 thousandths and I'm not laminating, that's what it is. If I'm laminating, it's still 80 thousandths.
So what about your top and your bottom?
Depends on the wood. So the back is usually about 110 thousandths. So less than 1/8 of an inch, 125 thousandths, 1/8 of an inch. I do a responsive back, which means that some people do a reflective, which means it's a stiff back, it doesn't move. But I actually carve the bracing until the back moves a little bit. Every time you can get more sound or more action out of the guitar, even though you have it against your body, which kind of kills some of that. The top is where all the sound comes from. And those are usually about 100 thousandths, depending on the wood, how stiff it is. I primarily use Sitka spruce from Alaska. I order directly from Alaska Specialty Company. They have fantastic wood. And I get my brace wood from the same place. And like a stiffer top, I can make thinner. Top is not as stiff. I have to make it a little bit thicker. And I tap the wood as I listen to it, as I remove brace wood until I get the sound I want. So it's called voicing the sound bar. So everyone's different.
You do the different inlays like around the hole and everything like that?
Oh yeah, I do abalone inlays, I do shell inlays, I do purflings, different things like that, so. I just had a guy, I don't know if you guys have been here before, there's a local musician named Louis McGee, and he's played with Neil Sedaka, Robert Plant, Bob Dylan. He toured with Bruce Hornsby for years, and he just got one of my guitars. And he's come over twice for me to adjust it. He just wants to drink, I think. So, but he's gonna come over again tomorrow, we're gonna adjust it again, but he's an incredible guitar player, and it was kind of intimidating watching him play one of my guitars.
That was about doing the veneer press or demonstration.
My veneers are a little bit different than just like the hammered veneers. I know nothing about that, but I'll do a class on this. I build the guitars all the time. I just never take pictures and never video, but I need to do that. I've been told I need to do that. So, any questions?